gentleman's time has expired. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. Madam Secretary, it's great to have you before the committee. It's been more than 2 months since President Biden signed the REPO Act into law, and I'd like to see it swiftly and fully implemented by the President. I wrote to you in May, joined by Congresswoman Waters and Congressman Meeks, to encourage the administration to do that. And while I support doing all we can to help Ukraine eject Putin, I have several concerns about the extraordinary revenue acceleration loan package announced by the G7 leaders last month. I question whether this plan can really work in practice. Under the REPO Act, the President already has the authority to go after Russian sovereign assets in the United States, and I believe these frozen assets should be legally seized, the ownership converted, and those funds deposited in the repo contemplated trust fund. I think that's in the best interest of Ukraine, the U.S., and our G7 allies, and I think it sends the right message that we're leading. Congress, on a bipartisan basis, passed this law. We want tough sanctions. We want Ukraine to have the arms they need, and we need the financial deterrence that repo brings. As Margaret Thatcher told us years ago, this is no time to go wobbly. I'd like to know how we're implementing that law. Will you commit to meet the mandatory deadlines as required by Section 104 of the REPO Act starting July 23rd?
Well, we will meet the requirements of the Act, but let me say we were very pleased with the passage of the REPO Act. It provides Treasury and the administration with an important set of tools, and we think all options should be on the table. However, we also believe a strength of our response to Putin has been that we have a global alliance that has worked together in support of Ukraine. And so we have looked for an approach that our allies, particularly the G7 and the European Union, could be supportive of, that would deliver significant revenues to Ukraine. And as I think you know, the G7 leaders in June did endorse—
I know, Madam Secretary. Let me reclaim my time just to use it effectively. And I thank you for your leadership. But the REPO Act, as Mr. Meeks and Ms. Waters and I point out, it does give more strength. We should be leading and use that full tool because we know the support is there in Europe if we'll provide that leadership. What's the total amount, now that you've had this 2 months, of frozen Russian central bank assets held in the Federal Reserve here in the United States?
It's a relatively small amount.
I understand that. Could you give us the amount, please, ma'am?
I mean, it's on the order of $5 or $6 billion.
All right.
And so it's not, most of the assets are held
I understand
in
that.
Europe.
I understand where the assets are held. Thank you. Let me switch subjects. FIT 21, I want to thank you. I want to thank Undersecretary Lang for the work you did on looking at our digital assets regulatory framework, which we worked on mightily over the last year on a bipartisan basis. I think I particularly want to thank the White House for the Statement of Administration Policy, which says that you're eager to work with Congress on developing legislation for digital assets to ensure a comprehensive and balanced regulatory framework. You continue to commit for the balance of this Congress to work with the committee and in the Senate to achieve a regulatory framework for digital assets?
Yes, very much so. I'm happy to make that commitment, and we have worked productively together. It would be nice to see this reach a good conclusion.
On another topic related to digital assets, you know, the SEC and the CFTC are consistently taking opposite legal positions in federal court on digital assets. In your capacity as the Financial Stability Oversight Council leader, what are you doing to bring the CFTC and the SEC together and be on the same page about this matter?
Well, I mean, it's not the job of the Financial Stability Oversight Council to adjudicate
No, but you're supposed to quarterback financial risk. Are you quarterbacking between the CFTC and the SEC on this dispute?
Not really. Our view, we have done a report on the risks connected with cryptocurrency and digital assets.
All right. In my final—
our risks have to do with holes where there's a lack
Right.
of authority.
I agree, and you're working constructively with us. Thank you. In my time remaining, I'm going to submit some questions on the multilateral banks and what I think is a preference that China is seeking, and we need Treasury to push back on that.